All right, welcome to another edition of Shift Talk. We're so excited today. We've got Petra Weiser, who has an incredible background in manufacturing through automotive and other companies where she's been day-to-day operations and has seen in front and behind the curtain of how things happen, how the workforce is managed, and what are companies doing to empower their workers in today's landscape. So we're really excited to have her on the show today. And I'm also joined by Holly Pennington, my amazing host, who makes the show so much better. I'm so glad she's on this now.
I try, y'all.
But why don't we start, Petra, with telling us a little bit about, how you got here? Did you grow up always wanting to be in manufacturing operations, or did you just come by it
No,
honestly?
I think I took the long road to
You took the,
manufacturing. So born and raised in Germany, in case anybody can't tell my accent. I came to the United States 35 years ago, so it's been a minute. And I actually have my education in Germany in business administration, so more in a supporting role. And then I came to the States, landed my first job with a German company because the fit was just, with my German background, it was just really good. So I was more in supporting roles. And just throughout my career, I had some really, really great mentors who kind of saw my ambition and my talent and my drive and added more and more to my plate. And I was in manufacturing and I really, really connected with the people out on the floor. So eventually I moved into operations management and it's just that's where my heart is. And I think that's where the true America is on the production floor. So I love it. And that's why I'm here. And I'm so excited you found me and I can talk about my passion projects.
So we totally found you on LinkedIn. And I think you started it like 3 months ago. It's called the Factory Floor Forward, and it's a newsletter. Definitely worth like going to take a look at it. I'm curious, like, what made you start to want to share your perspective on the floor? Because I thought like you really grabbed me with those newsletters. So where
Mhm.
did that start?
Well, my passion is in writing. So I'm not the most natural speaker per se, but I've always had a passion for writing. So I found my passion in writing two books. And then I went back to the work world and somebody says, hey, why don't you take that into a newsletter because you have that passion for manufacturing and there's another outlet to support manufacturing and also the women in it and have a voice. So I have to give a shout out to Trisha Food Sellers who kind of inspired me to do this newsletter. And so I said, yeah, why not? And I started it and I've just been loving it because it's a great outlet too. And hopefully between me and Todd Warner, we can spread the news in a maybe more blunt way than what people are used to.
Yeah, I think
Not
we need
blunt,
more
direct,
bluntness.
direct. Let's say direct.
Yeah,
Yes.
blunt, direct. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he
Nothing
definitely,
seems to work, right?
it's not. We're
Yeah.
so used to,
Yeah.
tiptoeing around these issues, especially a lot of the folks that we work with are in HR, which makes it an even harder conversation because they're
Yes.
thinking, oh, I can't say the wrong thing. And that's what I love about, the information you put out and the information Todd puts out. It's just, hey, this is what's actually happening right now. We can either ignore it or dance around it or just pretend that things are not really happening the way they're happening, or we can address it and fix the problems and make the entire industry better.
Mm.
True.
It's
And
pretty
HR,
simple.
a lot of times they have their hands tied too. They want to do the change. They want to impact and drive
Mhm.
and support. And so sometimes they run into the same bottlenecks as the people on the floor.
Right. It really does take a team effort from not just the people on the floor, but also people in leadership to all be aligned in this is the culture that we want to set for
Yep.
our facility. So going back to your newsletter really quick, I know you focus a lot on women. Is there anything in particular that you're seeing that you think is worth sharing that more people need to be aware of?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway I have from seeing women on the production floor is that they're just not seen at all. Also, for any leadership positions or a career path out of production, it's typically always focused on who either complains the loudest, and that typically don't tend to be women, I don't think. And so, just for you people in leadership, I would say look on the floor and see who your performers are. Look for those quiet performers. And women aren't necessarily stepping forward because they don't think they can do it a lot of times. So they need encouragement. They need somebody to see that talent. And the talent is definitely on the floor. It's just maybe not gutsy enough to step forward. So I think look for those people. Look for the women that bring a lot and do a lot every day.
Yeah, I think it makes it harder. We've had some amazing people on the show, like Stacy Cassio and a few
Yeah.
others come
Also,
to
give her a
mind that,
shout out. She's great.
isn't she?
Yeah.
That are really trying hard to not only make sure that more women have a seat at the table, but when they do, they raise their voice and say, "Hey, it's okay.
I'm good.
This is what we
We'll
should
be
be
incident.
focusing on." I
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
It's-
Um, Yeah, I love the mentorship and then especially the female mentorship too. I think, and I'm going to be really honest about that, I feel women do not support each other really well. They don't have that network, that support system that the men do have at work. And what Stacey's doing is great. And I want to encourage other women. We're not competition. We are really not
Mm.
competition. Just because there's only one seat doesn't mean we have to fight for it. There should be more than one seat at a table or anywhere you go. So men play a huge role. Most of my mentors have all been men. And so they also play a really vital role in awareness and in recognizing the talent and helping and promoting the women. But women can be their worst enemies at times.
That's such an interesting dynamic because I know Stacy highlights how many men are a part. She says a big misnomer is, oh, when I'm talking about women in the workplace, that I have to have a room full of women to have that conversation. And she said that's not the case. They need men at the table to be allies, to support these initiatives, to say, we want to hear more of that feedback, that participation, because it's a unique perspective that a lot of us are lacking, and we need more of it.
Well, men are the solution because men are also the problem, right? To some degree. So,
I walked right
yeah.
into that, didn't I?
Man, Adam.
But
Uh-huh.
it's true. I mean, you have more leaders in that environment being male, so you need them to also make room and help grow that room for the women. And that doesn't mean there's less opportunity for men. It just means you have more diversity and women bring another perspective to the work environment. And it's not a bad thing. It's you want different people at the table because your culture is going to be so much better because of it. Don't run away from your problems, face them.
I think you're right because to have good culture, you need to have diversity in thinking and processing how you solve things, right? And it's important to bring all of those points of view to the table. I think that's so important.
I used to be a really good example of not wanting to face up to the problems. Because it's easier, you think it's easier to walk away from something and not want to deal with it. And I think sometimes when somebody brings you a problem, it just makes you realize that you have issues. And it's really hard to acknowledge that you're not doing something right or that you've been doing something wrong. And it doesn't mean you did it on purpose, but you just have to acknowledge that something is not working. And that's a really big first step. And it just takes the culture of wanting to learn and kind of recognizing other cultures and other ethnic groups even, and that they are not harming the environment. I think it's just ridiculous. But there's a shift that needs to happen. Like,
Hmm.
Have you seen any examples of organizations that have done that well?
that is a tough one because I
Right?
haven't worked with that many companies, and most of mine were smaller. And I would definitely say that your European manufacturers are probably a little better on it because they tend to have better environments. Typically air conditioned and clean. They're ISO certified, and I think that culture can be a little bit better. And most of the German companies I've worked for, they're very much into culture and making sure that the work-life balance is important and that people are getting treated equally out on the production floor as well as in the office. That is something that is really hard to find in a lot of American manufacturers, and especially in the Southeast. There's a huge divide between the office and the production floor that I have seen.
I wonder if there's a little bit of a shift happening because you're right. I think more European
Hmm.
companies have already been thinking work-life balance for, man, for decades and decades. And I think the American culture a little less so. But I'd say, especially since COVID, I think the general perception of people want more to live life more and want that work-life balance. And
Yeah.
you see that more in white collar jobs, right? And I think now factory floor production workers want that same flexibility because life happens to them too. Their kids get sick or they need to go to a doctor's appointment or whatnot. So I wonder if we're starting to see that little bit of a culture shift, and that's going to force a lot of manufacturers to kind of pay attention to how workers want to work, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think the manufacturing companies that are moving into, especially in the Southeast, a lot of them are European. And if you want to be competitive and you want to retain your talent, I think you have to pull up a little bit to the standards that are being offered also in larger companies. The struggle is bigger with the smaller companies, but even there, I think we're shifting towards better pay, more vacation, and better benefits because benefits are huge, especially medical benefits. And we can hope that raises the bar and makes everything better. But it's a slower progression in the smaller companies for sure because they also struggle with budgets, right? And with
Hmm.
just leadership in general. Right.
Yeah, do you think the pressure, I mean, obviously COVID had a big impact, but it seemed like things were already trending in a direction where the workforce was simply saying, we're not going to take or keep these jobs if this is the expectation of the factory floor where we're still treated as a commodity and the rules and regulations around when you have to be here, when you can take breaks, all of these things, they just simply said, well, there's enough other opportunities out there that I can go work somewhere else. Do you think that's
Yeah.
what's, it's going to take to push companies to say, oh, we've really got to do something here?
Yeah, I was at a company during the COVID times that did not value their production people really a lot. And then they thought $15 an hour was good enough in that environment and then expected people to be there. And they had a point system and it was really punishing for most people because they couldn't really get by with that money. And a lot of them were single parents and a lot of them had
Right.
cars that barely made it to the parking lot every day. So you saw the struggle that they had. But the conversation was X is paying a $2,000 sign-on bonus and so gives you more time off. And also taught preachers about that all the time, that this whole traditional system of attendance doesn't work, especially you cannot attract a younger workforce into production with the way that things have been. Nobody wants to work 12-hour shifts, 3 on, 4 off, or whatever that is. It always amazed me how you think your people can work well for 12 hours consecutively and not get hurt or be mentally sane. And a lot of people say they like it, but I think the younger generation does not like a schedule like that. They want flexibility. They want to have that time off and not just, in my example, they had 5 days for vacation, for sick time, for any emergencies, and that's nothing, 5 days. I mean, who wants to work for a company that gives you 5 days vacation?
And often that's stipulated upon how long, like you have to be there, 90,
Yes.
6 months, you know what I mean? Like that's not from the get-go, right?
I mean, in the meantime, your office people get 2-3 weeks right off the bat. So
Mhm.
who does? I mean, we all do equal work, and I think manufacturing, in my opinion, because I'm a manufacturing, you know, advocate, I think more work gets done on the floor because without them, there is nothing to sell. And office people wouldn't exist if it wasn't for people in production making the product or doing the services.
Exactly.
Yeah, in your time, and that's why we love having you on, is you've been in those roles where you're seeing the factory floor on a regular basis. Do you feel like a big part of the issue is still a disconnect between leadership, the executive team, the corporate office, and the factory floor? Or have you seen any kind of movement towards them being more present and more involved in what's happening day to day?
So the presence is, I think, crucial. The disconnect comes from management not being present on the floor, or if they're present, you're being ignored when you're on the line. So your manager will walk by and not even acknowledge you, or they'll bring a customer in or a vendor in, and you're just like this byproduct that doesn't even get introduced, or you're not being acknowledged as a person.
Hmm.
Connection is so important, and I've always been of the mindset that if I lose touch with the people on the floor, then I lose touch with my company. If I don't understand the processes from the bottom up, I can't really manage well from the top down. And a lot of CEOs, and not just CEOs, at any management position, you have to step on the floor and not do the audits. Like you can do audits all day long, but you should really have conversations with the people on the floor. Solutions are being found on the floor and implemented on the floor. So get out on the floor and talk to the people and just watch and ask what's slowing you down. If there's one thing that you could fix, what would it be? Or are you tired of the pizza party every Friday as a reward? Because that doesn't really work really well as a reward system anymore. It's I've had so many pizza parties, and every time I would mention we bring in a pizza, it was the again. That's not a reward anymore. It's a cheap lunch that you don't even have to pick up yourself. You have to, you get it delivered, and that alone tells your people a lot about how you care about them. There's no effort in it.
Right. I feel like you have to connect and understand their point of view, right? I think that's really what you're highlighting here by them being on the floor. Would you say, I know it's not like a hard and fast rule, but how often do you say like it's important for leadership to be on the floor connecting and asking questions of their team and actually like seeing them and hearing them?
I know daily is not an option for a lot of CEOs, right? But I would definitely say once a week, you should walk through, you should connect, you should be honest about your interactions. Don't just go there and shake somebody's hand and don't mean it. I also know a lot of CEOs that walk in and just criticize whatever they see. There's never any praise. It's just always about the bad things. I think we need to also point out the good things that are happening, the good work that is being done. And if it's a compliment, will really go a long way. Acknowledge people and respect people.
Mm-hmm. I think empathy is really important, right?
Super important. But it's also, and I think it's easy to turn off empathy as a boss because it lets you not act on it. And it builds that barrier of safety where you don't have to be emotional or not emotional, but empathetic. It's a disconnect. It's a mechanism of disconnection where you don't have to care about people. But it's a horrible way to run a business or lead people because those are human beings and they all have lives and issues and challenges. And why not connect with them and find out what drives them? I mean, a CEO has emotions too and feelings and struggles.
Mhm.
So we all have that in common. It's not different on the floor.
Exactly.
And I think women bring that to the table. Women are typically very communicative and collaborative in any environment, and they look out for everybody on the floor, not just themselves. So empathy is not a weakness, it's a strength because you can really tune into your people and find out what's ticking and what's not ticking and fix it.
Yeah, I'm curious. I know you're a big advocate for women, especially in this industry, who have for a very long time represented a very small portion of not just the workforce, but leadership. What does, two questions. What does success look like to you? And what are the benefits that you believe all of us working together equally brings to the company, brings to the entire organization? I'm kind of curious about what you would envision a utopia organization looking like.
Ooh.
Like, give us something, like, what would we work towards?
Again, it's very, very challenging. And it's also industry specific. So if I go into electronics manufacturing, what you'll see is
Mm-hmm.
mostly women, right? Other manufacturing is mostly male driven. In a perfect world, you have a good mix of everyone presented in different industries in manufacturing. I would love to see a more women in general in manufacturing, but women also want a career just like men. Not everybody wants a career, so some people can stay in manufacturing, and that's quite okay. But you also have to have a path forward for those people that want to kind of move up. So there needs to be a path. I would just again like to see more women in general on the production floor, and then more women in leadership positions on the production floor, line leaders, production
Mm-hmm.
managers, in the office, even office managers, operations managers, just like me, who are helping to shape a culture in a company. I see a lot of women in HR, and that's great, but we also need to empower HR to be even pillar or equal pillar to all the other sections in a company. I always feel like HR takes such a side chair to everyone, but it should
Mm.
really be a main seat at that table so that they are also empowered and not just quiet when management doesn't feel like the message is right. Because HR is there to support management and the people, and it needs to build that bridge, but it needs to be allowed to have that bridge.
Yeah, that's definitely a dynamic we see in the dozens of manufacturers we work with is the majority of the female workforce is in HR and male on the ops side. And unfortunately, the dynamic is set up where operations calls the shots, even down to the floor supervisors being the ones that are really running the plant. And unfortunately, a lot of times based on very outdated concepts of what a healthy workforce looks like. Is that what you've seen as well? Or the biggest challenge is really changing mindsets first of how we approach work today?
Yeah, and again, I speak mostly for the smaller organizations, and sometimes you don't even have an HR department in those companies,
Mm-hmm.
so that's
Yep.
really tricky. I think we all can contribute towards a better environment because I think we need to encourage each other more, right? Everything starts from the bottom up. It's a two-pronged approach. It's bottom up and top down. So on all the levels, we just need to be aware more of how we interact with each other, how we talk to one another. I just did my newsletter about language use, right? So there is so much
Mm-hmm.
to language on the production floor. It's just, and people don't mean anything by it most of the times, but they're also not aware of how it could impact somebody else, what they hear and how you say it. It all matters. So we all just need to be aware, be inclusive of opinions and struggles, and acknowledge that when we have a problem, it's not bad to have a problem, but it's bad not to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And to, I think the most important thing is really to recognize the talent you have on the floor. There's so many hidden gems in there, and we need to recognize them as leaders, even teammates to teammates. I think encouraging each other on every day, we can accomplish a lot more when we work together and not get divided. And management will oftentimes divide the team on the floor because it benefits them. Because then you can't organize, right? You can't do anything if you're fighting within yourselves and within your ranks, and then you can't address the real problems that are above you. So we all need to work together, ground up, top down.
Would you say that starts with supervisors? Like, where does that change start?
It starts
Ideally.
it starts within the team, I think first. You have to stop blaming. I think that's number one. Stop blaming someone else and just because we can all be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And you need to stop blaming your coworkers when something doesn't go right. You need to ask, hey, how can I help you? Or hey, you did this great, and stop criticizing and start encouraging your teammates. That will also be your allies when you try to go and improve things on the floor. And that goes to your supervisor who needs to hear your voices, who needs to be open to criticism. The environment of criticism is so important. It's not a bad thing. It's fix it. It's just going to root. It's just going to really be the root of your problems all across the board. You don't want to be that apple that has that bad core, and that's going to be a bad core if you don't fix your issues.
We see so many companies take that approach. It's almost more of operating out of, fear than trust. We're talking about it before we were recording, how so many companies, when faced with more and more workers that are leaving the job or missing shifts or taking too many breaks, and their reaction to that isn't, oh, we should rethink how we're structuring everybody's schedule. It's, well, we should really tighten down on these rules more and make it even more, a negative impact.
Cringe on the face.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's a way of really getting them out the door. Tighten the grip, right? Ugh.
It's funny. One of the points I wanted to make is that companies a lot of times will focus on what they don't have versus what they have. And then the reason they use policies to focus on what they don't have instead of being thankful for what they have. So things will be going
unpack
great and you're running your company maybe kind of good. So your turnover isn't too bad. But then companies get greedy and they're saying, oh, I want a little bit more of that, but we give too many benefits to these workers on the floor. So let's increase their, copay on their insurance every month, or let's do the attendance policy because we think people they're abusing the system. So policing does not work. And companies really need to focus on what is working really well and not get greedy at some point and want to keep the biggest piece of the pie to themselves because it's a confined effort. So you should reward everyone and not get greedy. That's really bad. So policing and
I'll be
policy.
direct.
Yeah.
Love it.
I mean, you need policies, don't get me wrong. You do need certain guidelines and you need a framework, but you can't just keep taking things away when things are going well. And that's typically what happens a lot, that things go well and then the management thinks, well, what don't we have? And then they focus on control and that doesn't work. I think then you're going backwards and it'll result in higher turnover. And I think when you have high turnover, you lose your most experienced workers and then you lose a lot of knowledge and know-how and that never ends really well.
Yeah, we see that all the time. It only exacerbates the bad situation and makes it worse. It's like a Chinese finger trap toy that, the harder you pull against it, the worse it tightens around your fingers. So
Really nice reference, Adam. Have you experienced with that?
Just a little. Maybe just a little.
maybe just a little. I mean, it's funny. We were internally having a conversation yesterday within my work choice where we have a whole culture about flexibility in your schedule and treating you with respect and saying, if you need time off, you just take it. Like, you don't need to justify to us why you can't make a shift. We're going to treat you like an adult. You're going to select when you're going to work and when you can't, and we're going to figure out ways to make that work. And it's still challenging when you're faced with, okay, well, what happens when you do have workers that are taking advantage of the situation or, gaming the system? And you have to come to a place of, okay, those folks are not a good fit for our place of employment. And instead of coming up with a program or a model where, oh, we have to take away all of these benefits from everyone or punish everyone in a certain way, sometimes you have to address, okay, these are the standards that we are going to have so that we can still offer these great perks and flexibility and benefits, because otherwise we'll become like everybody else out there that's saying, no, we have very rigid scheduling and very rigid attendance policies. And guess what? We'll end up in the same boat where for every 100 people we hire, we keep 10, 6 months later. So even ourselves, we have to step back every once in a while and readdress, okay, what is it we're trying to deliver to our clients and to our workers as far as reliability in being able to operate, right? Which is what every manufacturer needs, and autonomy and empowerment on the worker side so they can actually have work-life balance. And it is a challenge, especially, I'm just speaking for myself, where I was raised where, no, if you have a job, you show up at this time, you stay till this time, and you do everything in your power to never miss a day. And better or worse, I think for the better, Holly's generation came along and
Hey now.
Holly is actually, she's a boomer trapped in a 30-year-old's body. So
Yeah,
she's
it's
the
not something like
exception
that.
to the rule. But hers was the first generation that finally said, no, I want to actually enjoy life now, not when I'm 70 and no longer even potentially physically able to enjoy it. I'm not going to make my job who I am as a person, right? It's important to me. I take a lot of pride in what I do, but it's not going to define who I am as a person. And I think we all need to step back and say, maybe that is the way to approach it. And how would work look if we all approached it that way? And we're all trying to find that balance in, okay, how do we make sure that product is getting built and shipped? And how are we also giving people work-life balance along with a livable wage?
I love what you just said. And I feel like once it gets into production, I don't feel like we're looking at individuals anymore. And that's where the empathy gets lost. We're looking at a whole group of people, and you can kind of generalize them, right? Which you can't really do in an office. But you are so right that that whole one fits all does not work anymore for manufacturing. You have to be flexible. And like you said, you have to reevaluate too if what you're doing is working, because it might not work for everyone again. I think it's such a new concept for everyone in manufacturing. It's you're preaching something new that nobody's really doing yet on a larger scale, but they should if they want to keep the workforce and if they want to attract new workers. And you can't get stuck in one thing. Like you said, you have data and you can reevaluate it, you can ask questions what's working, you get that feedback. And it is difficult in manufacturing because you do have the quota you have to meet and schedules you have to meet, but it can be done. And we just need to start saying it's okay to think outside the box in manufacturing, because it is. If you want to be around for the next 20 years, you have to adapt or die out.
Exactly. And I think that's the point. As we head into the next year, so 2026, do you have any hot takes on what's going to happen or any advice that you would give to someone
Oh, this
just
should be
trying to
big.
survive in a very uncertain times, it feels like?
No, it's super hard. If you're in manufacturing, especially on the floor, I think it's a crazy world right now, and there's no stability anywhere. At least that's the feeling that I have.
Yeah.
And it's a scary thought to have, because I also grew up more in an environment where you would stick around with the company for years and years, and but that went out the window. And it's not the people that are to blame; it's really the companies that are to blame. It's going to be those employers that can offer flexibility that are going to be the winners next year, I think, and going forward, because things are just getting, I think, even tighter. And then the health insurance is going to be one other issue for a lot of people next year, because it's affordable. It's not really affordable for most people. And to me personally, I don't know, when we don't have universalized health care, because coming from Germany, it is, and it works, and everybody pays in, and everyone gets to use it. Keeping our workers healthy is a huge struggle, and it's going to, I think, get worse as, yeah, if we don't act as a country too in politics to make this better. I have high hopes that people like me and that we can encourage other leaders on the floor, and even not just leaders, but everybody in manufacturing, to just take a fresh look at what we're doing and how we're doing things, and then make an impact. Sometimes I get frustrated because I don't feel things are moving fast enough, or that one person can't have a big impact, but one person can have a huge impact. And I would say try it and find your allies, and throughout all levels. Find your allies in HR, find it in your teammates, your supervisors, in your CEO. And if you don't get anywhere, then maybe then it's time to look for somebody who will listen. But it is just so sad that in those small companies, sometimes the change is so slow to come. But don't give up, because it just takes one person. You got to find that right person that can be your ally, and things can change so quickly. It really can.
Oh, I love that. You're going to write another book?
I have one in the works now, but I keep writing my newsletter, and we'll see what's on the next year. I have no idea, so I'm excited.
We are going to give a shout out to that. You need to look up Petra Weiser on LinkedIn. She also has a website where she has her books posted, Impact, and I love this, Dichectomy.
With dichotomy, thank you very much.
Dichotomy. Oh,
Dichotomy. Yeah.
dichectomy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe
It's
I
it's
fell
just
into
been
that
on the word
trap.
dichotomy, so
Yeah, I
Yeah.
We
love
like
it.
it.
yeah.
I just love the description. Dichotomy acknowledges the importance of the Ricks and Dicks in every woman's life. Even men, we have them too. People that are supportive, and there's people that just aren't. I
Yes.
think,
But you
it's
can learn
easy
so
when
much from each, right? You take away from everyone what you need and discard the rest.
Yeah,
I love that. That is definitely great life advice
it
in
is.
general.
Everything is a learning opportunity. So, especially my second book is kind of where I kind of wrote to women and how to deal with the difficult people in their lives, and most of them are going to be men. Didn't want to, put it on the cover, but there's learning is so important, and every interaction that you have, and as horrible as it might be, you can walk away learning something about that person, and that will help you in your next interaction with that person. So never waste an opportunity, and don't be afraid of interacting with those that you really don't, because you will learn something, and that's going to be ammunition for the next time. So
Love that.
Well, we've exceptionally enjoyed getting to know and learn more about you. Um, Thank you so much for coming on the show. Hopefully, we can have you on again. We'd love to follow up, see what you're up to, see what new books you've written, and be able to see what Holly got in her emails.
I know, like this is the one time I don't put on Do Not Disturb. So, sorry to everyone that saw those messages.
Oh, I love it.
Heard those messages. This has been fun, Petra.
yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Again, this was my first podcast, so I'm hoping for a few more, and I will never keep
Yeah.
it boring. So, and you made the process really easy. So thank you for having me on, and hopefully we can make a change in manufacturing.
Let's do it.